Cool view. One thing I did want to tell you or talk to you about was 4 things that we learned today getting into the Phuket Sandbox. Now, I know that according to what we hear, that they might be changing the rules come the middle of December, that may be allowing rapid tests instead of the RT-PCR tests. So depending on when you're watching this may not be applicable. However, while we were in our layover in Dubai, we got there about 9 o'clock at night, and the markets had just opened in the US. It was a half day of trading because it was the day after Thanksgiving, and there was a 1,000-point sell-off due to some new variant in South Africa that they were just announcing. So I don't know what's going on with that. This is going off of the current Phuket non-quarantine. So a couple of things that I wanted to tell you about. First thing, mistake number 1, or piece of advice number 1. We hired a car for our time here. Got a really good deal on it, 11,000 baht from November 27th, which is today, until December 9th. Nice car through budget. That's what we got. Here's the issue. Under the current Sandbox program, you are not allowed to pick up said car. You must have your SHA approved hotel pick you up from the airport, and they have to take you directly to the hotel. No stops or anything. So the issue was, I set my car pickup, our plane arrived. I tried calling Budget, asked them to move it to the next day, pick it up tomorrow, the 28th, and they told me that there was no cars available and I'd have to cancel the reservation and there's nothing to be had. That doesn't even really make much sense because I have this car booked, and yet they're saying that there's no cars available when I just want to take this car, pick it up tomorrow. So what I ended up doing, ended up coming into the hotel, and then I asked the lovely people at the check-in counter to please call, because I thought they would have a little bit more luck being able to speak Thai than me trying to explain it. So she says that they are going to allow me to pick it up today if I get my quarantine results back in time. They close at 6, or to be there by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Hopefully that works out. So advice number 1, 24 hours minimum after. It's really not that big of a deal. I paid 700 baht to get here as an airport transfer for 5 people in a big van. So it's really not that expensive. Number 2, printing everything out, but make sure that you have at least 3 copies of each. The problem that we ran into today is that they were keeping our documents. Okay, so one of the stops we had at Sandbox, when we got into Phuket, they wanted our negative PCR test, and we gave it to them, but then they kept it. The problem is someone else asked for it outside. Now we had a little bit of leeway because my mother was in the wheelchair supplied by the airport. So, you know, when you have the porter or anything like that, you get to whisk past everything. We didn't have to wait in those little chairs. If you guys have been watching other videos about Sandbox, you sit in those plastic chairs and wait. We got to swing right by that because my mother had the wheelchair service. So definitely recommend that if you qualify. Definitely don't get it if you don't. Get a couple of copies, because also when we got to the hotel, they also needed copies and we didn't have anything. Granted, we were able to work through it. They looked at stuff on our phone, but it definitely made it a lot more hectic, and it would have been so much better if we had 3 copies of each. So highly recommend, and this of course is at the time the way Sandbox is now. You need your SHA approved hotel for at least 1 night. You also need your negative PCR test done not more than 72 hours prior. And then you also need your insurance, which interestingly enough, they really didn't ask for. And you need your Thailand pass. We had our Thailand pass printed out, but there again, we only had 1. Somewhere along the line, in one of the stops we did, they kept that too. So at the hotel, they took photos from our phone, but definitely have more than that. So that's number 2. Number 3, your insurance. Definitely get good insurance. Well, hearing a lot of the reasons why people are getting rejected is you're going with a different insurance company than what may be approved for Thailand. We went with Assistance USA. We've actually used them before. 2 they recommend on thaiembassy.com, and we went with them. So wasn't that bad at all. We paid $784 for 4 of us with top platinum coverage. Okay, and that's also for almost 30 days at approximately $4,000 per traveler value. So we did not get to cancel for any reason. It was just too much additional money. We didn't want to spend that. One thing I will tell you to do is definitely print out a couple copies of your insurance card. God forbid you need it and it was on your phone or something like that, and you need to get to a hospital or to a doctor or anything. You have the printout card. I'm going to cut this out and I'm going to put this in my travel documents I'm going to keep on me. So I would recommend a couple copies of this. Keep it with you. Okay? Number 4. Definitely be prepared. Depending on what you did with your hotel, you may have prepaid for your COVID test when you arrived, or you do like we did. We paid for it on site. That's how the hotel told us to do it. Wasn't a problem whatsoever, but make sure you don't lose your receipt. Okay, this receipt's very important. It says original on there. It's actually a pretty important document. It's how they recognize you, but also the hotel needed a copy of this, so they didn't tell us that earlier. Number 5. This will be the last one, and I didn't know anything about this, but the lady on the airline said that there was an option to do this online. So you may just want to research that. Okay, there was a questionnaire that you had to fill out. I've not seen this before. I don't know anything about it. So don't know what it's, but basically what it asks is our date of birth, where we're from, what address we're going to. A little bit redundant to the Thai pass, but questionnaire. Okay, they provided this on the airline, but just in case, you may just want to do a search and get that printed out early. They didn't give this to us until about 20 minutes before we landed. Jennifer ended up filling it out for myself and Mikey as well, because she's the responsible one. Nobody could read my handwriting, so it's a lot to do in 20 minutes while trying to land. So that is that. The other thing I would tell you to do is definitely be prepared to hang out in the room. Make sure if there is a quarantine requirement, you choose a room that's definitely going to have a little bit of stuff to do.